Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we have a sweet content creator showdown. This was one of a few games we played on Cedh TV's Twitch channel the other day. And not only were we joined by Mons, but also Alex from the Commander's Dojo. And you should definitely check out their channels if you haven't already. And I am happy to announce the winner of last week's contest. Congratulations to Connor Williard for winning and claiming a spot on an upcoming video of ours. I will be messaging you shortly to set up a schedule. And for those that didn't win but still want to play with us, come join our Discord, as we often let people know when we play and love when we can play with someone new. But now for that sweet intro. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. So, who's playing what today? Well, first off, we have Alex, who's brought his Paco Halden Teamer Storm deck. This is an Underworld Breach list that also gains lots of value from just casting Halden and casting his opponent's spells, while at the same time just beating face with the best boy Paco. Next up is Steve, piloting his signature deck, Riel. This is an Is It Discard Matters deck that uses Riel's ability to net positive on cards such as Faithless Looting, to dig deep and assemble an Underworld Breach combo. But if this deck looks interesting, we did a deck tag video on it, cough cough, link in the corner. Third up is Jimmy, piloting Marath. This Naya control deck looks to use creature-based stacks cards along with Marath to slow his opponents down until he can assemble one of his own combos. And bringing up the rear, we have Mons, piloting his signature deck, Cedh Weatherlight Captain. This deck has a few different combo lines with either Najeela and Derevi for infinite combats or infinite mana with Emil and Dockside. And the best part being able to just tutor out any legendary to either combo off or stop his opponents. But without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Pre-game. Mons actually has a pre-game effect, putting a Gemstone Cavern into play, exiling a Gyre Reach Sanitarium, and then lets Alex actually start his turn 1. Alex plays an Ancient Tomb and then casts a Mana Vault. Unfortunately, we did lose Alex's footage for the turn, but he had quite the spicy one. He played a Mana Vault, a Mox Diamond, and a Lotus Petal. Using all that mana, he actually managed to play a turn 1 Paco, which, due to being both a very hasty boy and best boy, swings at Mons. He exiles the top card of every player's library, with the notable cards being a Mountain from Steve and a Dispel from himself, with Paco gaining 3 +1/+1 counters. Luckily for the table, he passes the turn to Steve. The footage comes back on Steve's turn just after he cracked a Bloodstained Mire for a Volcanic to cast a Soul Ring. But not done yet, he plays his own Lotus Petal and then cracks it to cast a Snap on the Paco, successfully negating Alex's amazing turn 1. Steve then untaps his land and uses it to cast everyone's favorite Mystic Remora, to which Mons responds with a Veil of Summer to simply cycle and draw something new. Jimmy plays his Savannah and then enchants the land with a Utopia Sprawl, naming red. He lets Steve draw off the fish and then realizes he actually wanted to play a basic forest, and the table lets him change his land drop, but Jimmy is done after that. Mons plays a snow-covered forest as land and then pulls out his anti-Paco trump card in Hapatra, Vizier of Poison. Alex takes 1 off the tap vault, and on his main he takes another 2 off the tomb as he casts Halden, finishing his turn by playing Steve's Exiled Mountain. Steve starts off by paying for the fish with the Soul Ring, and on his main plays an Ancient Tomb as land. And I don't really like my hand, so I'm going to try and cast a Wheel of Fortune. With a fresh new set of 7, Steve passes to Jimmy. Jimmy plays a Command Tower and then casts a 3 visits, letting Steve draw off the fish. Jimmy shocks in a Temple Garden and then ends his turn with a Dranite Magistrate.
Yay. Nice.
Yay. Mons plays a Carpet of Flowers, letting Steve draw off the fish, and then follows it up with a Snow-Covered Plains. He heads to combat and Hapatra goes at Steve, who takes it, and Mons puts a -1/-1 counter on the Magistrate, gaining him a Snake token. On his second main, he activates the Carpet for mana to cast a Gaddock Teague. Alex again takes 1 off the vault and then plays and cracks a Bloodstained Mire. He searches out a Volcanic, but decides to leave his mana up and passes to Steve. Steve continues to pay for the fish, and on his main plays a Mountainous Land. He follows it up with a Mana Vault, and then with a floating mana, he casts a Gilded Drake. He decides he wants the ability to play his commander in the future, so he swaps the Drake with Jimmy's Magistrate. And, satisfied, he hands the turn over to Jimmy. Jimmy starts off with a Forest, and then casts the Cinder Vines. He lets Steve draw off the fish, and then ships the turn. Mons plays a Volcanic Island as land, and then utters something every opponent wants to hear.
Let's have fun.
Yay.
Fun is fun. Fun is fun for me, though.
Be fun.
He then activates Carpet for black, and then casts the Demonic Tutor, triggering the Cinder Vines, and then the Mystic Remora. Steve draws, and Mons takes one, and then tutors out a card. His next play is a Grenzo, Havoc Razor. Excited, he heads to combat. Hapatra heads at Steve, while the Snake and Gadok head at Alex.
Oh, it has Death Touch, you bastard. Yeah, I'll take the 3, it's fine.
Both players take the hit, and Mons has both Hapatra and Grenzo triggers. He puts a -1/-1 counter on the Gilded Drake to gain another Snake, while Grenzo exiles the top card of Steve's library and the top 2 of Alex's. Alex takes 1 off the vault and has a quick turn, only playing a Training Center as land and passing. But at his end step, Steve cycles a Forgotten Cave. Steve finally kills off the fish, and on his main, plays an Arid Mesa and casts his commander Riel. He then cracks the fetch to shock into Steam Vents and then casts a Burning Inquiry, taking 1 off the Cinder Vines. Please note that I will not be mentioning the Cinder Vines triggers, but we are aware and are keeping track. Jimmy responds with a Braid to kill Steve's Riel. Riel is sent back to the command zone, and the inquiry resolves, and the table draws and discards 3 at random, with Steve then casting a Chrome Mox. He imprints a Back to Basics, and not done yet, ponders, choosing to rearrange the top 3 and drawing a card, while finishing his turn with an Arcane Signet. Jimmy starts off his turn with a Generous Patron. He supports 1 onto the Grenzo and Halden to draw 2 cards, following it up with the Plains as land. But the patron doesn't stay around for too long, as he sacrifices it to an Altar of Bone to find and then cast a Sarah's Ascendant, while Alex gives some MTG stonks advice.
By the way, Altar of Bone, reserve list for those of you who may not know. Pick up your copies now.
Oh, is it?
Jimmy then heads to combat, swinging the Drake at Steve for 2. Mons starts off by going to war. Hapatra and Gadok swing at Steve, while Grenzo and the Snake head at Alex, and the final Snake slithers at Jimmy. Alex blocks the Grenzo, and in response to the Grenzo trigger, Steve casts a Thrill of Possibilities, pitching a gamble to draw 2 cards. Mons now has a whole bunch of triggers. He starts off by putting a -1/-1 counter on the Magistrate to gain another Snake. Grenzo golds both Halden and the Ascendant, and he exiles the top card of Alex's library and 2 of Steve's. Having yet cast the spell for his turn, Mons on his second main activates the carpet for 2 blue to cast Steve's exiled Baral, and then a Winds of Rebuke to bounce Alex's Mox Diamond, with everyone also milling 2. Mons follows it up with a Wooded Foothills and then a Kataki War's Wage, passing. Alex starts off by sacrificing the Mana Vault to the Kataki trigger, and on his main plays a Mana Conflux.
Because I don't give a fuck about Kataki, I'm gonna play a Mox Diamond and pitch a mountain, or not a mountain, a forest. What are we doing here, boys?
He then plays another artifact, this one being a Soul Ring, and decides it's time to ponder. He decides to seek new opportunities and shuffles and draws. Next up, he casts a Shadow Spear and equips it to Halden. But before heading to combat, Alex makes a deal with Jimmy to avoid the Sarah Ascendant coming his way, and decides to swing at Steve, who chumps it with a weakened Drannith Magistrate, and Alex gains 3. Steve untaps, and after some thought decides to Mystical Tutor with the Kataki trigger still in the stack. He finds a Pact of Negation and then decides to only pay for the Arcane Signet and sacrifice the rest. He draws the Pact, and on his main starts off with an Underworld Breach. With it on the stack, Alex responds with a Spell Pierce, which Steve pays for. The breach then resolves, and Steve starts off by casting his Lotus Petal. He cracks the petal and then casts his Winds of Rebuke to bounce the Cinder Vines, as his life total isn't super high at the moment. But Alex has another response as he casts the Nature's Claim targeting the breach. Steve has to snap off his tutored Pact of Negation. But Alex, having even more answers, responds with a Dispel on the Pact. Unfortunately for the table, Steve, with the last of his mana, is able to cast a Dispel out of his yard to foil Alex's attempt at stopping him. Now, with no more interaction from the table, Steve is able to recast his Lotus Petal twice for 2 blue and seals the game by casting a Brain Freeze. This lets him mill himself out and then cast a Twin Flame and Dual Caster Mage for infinite hasty creatures to take his opponents out. Game review. I want to thank Mons for inviting us on stream. That was a fun night, and if you want to see more of us playing with Mons, check out his channel, as we have played several times and can't wait to play with him again. I also want to thank Alex for this sweet Paco Halden list he was running, and it was nice to meet him as well. As for the gameplay, it was definitely an unexpected win for Steve, as he did not have much of a board state for the majority of the game, although he was able to keep up with the card advantage thanks to his early Mystic Remora, and it was fortunate for him that Jimmy tapped out, not leaving up the Cindervine's activation. As for the Cindervines, it was actually a pretty useful card. It not only did a ton of damage to the table, but it would have stopped Steve from storming off, and it doubles as removal for Underworld Breach, had Jimmy left the mana up for it. This card is definitely something I'm going to start including in all my Stacks decks. As for Alex, it was unfortunate that we lost the footage of his first turn, as he managed a turn 1 Paco. But this setback was not just limited to that, as Steve was able to bounce the Paco and then forcibly discard him from the Wheel of Fortune. And while you might argue the free refill on cards was a good trade-off, he'd already used some of his good fast mana, and with the added commander tax, he couldn't rebound as fast as he would have liked to. And last up was Mons. He was in a very commanding board state, but unluckily for him, he wasn't able to cast Cedh, which would have let him tutor out his win con. I don't know if this was just missed during the moment, but Grenzo could have goaded the Magistrate and forced Steve to essentially suicide it into either Jimmy or Alex, letting Mon cast Cedh and potentially giving him the game. But Mons did mention he was worried about giving access back to both Jimmy's and Alex's commander. He also noted that he probably shouldn't have cast Steve's Winds of Rebuke, and instead just left it in exile, as Izzet colors really have a hard time removing enchantments after they have resolved. And the Cindervines was definitely hindering Steve due to his low life total. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I just wanted to let you know that we have a TCG affiliate link, and if you ever see a card you want to try or are inspired to brew something new, use our link when purchasing and we'll receive a small portion of the sale. This is a great way to support the channel, and if you enjoyed the gameplay, please leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.